Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com, BidamountLive.com, and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, September 3rd, heading into Labor Day. I hope you all have plans and getting together with people, maybe having a couple of cookouts and things to do. Here, it's a 4-day weekend here. It's pretty great, except for me. At any rate, everybody I know is taking today through Monday night off, and that's all right. At any rate, there's a lot going on. As I've mentioned a couple of times over the summer, that things were very, very quiet and that would be picking up again as soon as September rolls around. And sure enough, like the swallows to Capistrano, auctions are starting to appear. The auction houses in Europe are repopulating with all kinds of sales. We're going to get into some of them. And Sotheby's has published their first catalog of their upcoming sale this September, September 21 to 22nd. It's here. It's over in the Bidamount research section. Those of you that maybe don't know about the Bidamount site, if you come to the homepage at bidamount.com, scroll down and to the orange box right here, and you click that open, auction catalogs, and you click that link, and it brings you over to here. And the first one in the upper left will be the new Sotheby's catalog that we just posted up this morning. And here it is. And it's a heck of a sale. It's a 2-day sale, September 1 through the 22nd. And there's a lot of great things in here. It's a very good auction, 2 days worth of auctions. And some of the other auctions that are coming along are pretty darn good too. This one has in it, though, rather fascinatingly, the Barry McLean collection of ancient bronzes. And for those of you that aren't familiar with him, he's been a collector for decades and decades and decades. He's written books. He's a very wealthy Midwestern guy. He built his own museum, the Asian Art Museum in Illinois, outside of Chicago. And there's a very good section of this sale is devoted to his Chinese bronze collection. Here it is, and the write-ups in here are absolutely scholarly, beautifully done. They have pictures of him, pictures of the interior of the museum that he built, and there are pages and pages and pages of archaic bronzes. If you're a fan of these things, pay attention to it. Pay attention to this sale. This is going to be a real litmus test for the market because the pieces that he has, a lot of them haven't been on the market in decades, and many were bought privately around the world from important dealers and directly from collections, and so on. But the write-ups are absolutely great, and it gives you a chance to really study early bronzes and their patinas, their surfaces, the minor details, and so forth. And you can, of course, go over to the website and look at them if you want to blow the pictures up even more. But there's some fantastic pieces in here, and I urge everyone who enjoys early bronzes to check this out. There is a wealth of information in the write-ups. Okay, it's certainly worth doing. And then the rest of the sale has all kinds of things in it. There's some very fine rare porcelains. There's a very fine altar set being offered, including some old photographs of it. 5 golden offerings to Buddha. Major collection, out of a major collection. This is going to bring the world. This should do very, very well. Exceptionally rare gold ground Famille Rose 5-piece altar set, mark and period of Qianlong. All right, a set like this hasn't come on the market in a very, very long time. And this has been in a private collection for a long time. And it goes on and on and on, some other great bronzes and so forth. So check this out. Check it out. All right. And the other thing I wanted to mention was over on the Bidamount Live site, some pretty good things have turned up. And I thought it would be fun to point out a couple of particular lots on the BidamountLive.com site that I noticed this week that look particularly good. There's more and more things turning up on there, and we're noticing quite a few sales in the last month or so in particular, quite a few sales. And I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see people selling things. Everybody's figuring out their pricing and trying to get that all organized. We've even sold some things on there, things that we got out of an estate in the area, and on it goes. But one of the things I wanted to mention was this. There's a very nice Kangxi plate on here right now. And I mentioned this because this week I've had a couple of inquiries through the inquiry program, people asking about similar plates that were being offered in different places. They were in the $400 to $600 range, that kind of thing. And this one is up right now. It's for $200. It has a couple of hairlines in it, but the other ones I looked at did too, and they were still asking $400 or $500. I think that was too much. But this one has a couple of hairlines, but overall, very, very pretty plate, beautifully decorated, and $200. $200. I think that's very reasonable. And then there's this nice looking, about 13-inch tall Mandarin vase. $675 is on there now. It's got some rubbing, but overall it's in very nice condition. And then this is exceptional. A pair of the Meiji period or late Edo Meiji period Amari chargers. They're almost 14 and a half inches wide. They're big. A pair for $400. If you're a Japanese Amari buyer, you want to buy these. Okay, I'm tempted myself just because they're pair. And they are what they call a sort of a complementary pair. They're not exactly the same, but they're different scenes, but very similarly done. And that's how they were often done. They weren't always, they didn't necessarily replicate each other, but they were comparable in borders and all that other business. They have the same marks on the backs, that kind of thing. So they were made to be together, and they're 14 inches. These are big for $400. All right, so if you're a Japanese Amari collector, you want to definitely check these out, and I would urge somebody to buy them because I think it's a very, very, very fair price. He had them up before for $550. For some reason, nobody grabbed them, so they're now being offered. Whoops! Excuse this thing. That's an image search program we use. At any rate, you want to check that out before they. Somebody else buys them. Okay. Now, what else is happening around here? Let's see here. Oh, over on the global member pages, it got very loaded this week. We began loading it. We've got more outlots to add this week, but there is, as you can see here, a lot of material coming up in sales. We've talked about some of them, Brunks and a few others that have sales coming up, but now there's more. All right, and I want to get into a few of them because there's some really interesting things that are going to be on offer in the next within the next month. All right, the first thing I wanted to mention that Marquis de Santos in Portugal is having a very nice sale. An excellent sale of mostly 18th century and late Ming wares and Famille Rose export pieces. Lots of very good export pieces. Lots of export for the European market. And we're going to go through the Judgment of Paris plates and all that business. And there's a few that really jumped out at me that I like in particular, a few lots. One of them is this, a pair of Kangxi period wine coolers. Now, these wine coolers turn up from time to time. They're fairly rare, but a pair of them is even rarer. And they have an opening bid of 2,000 euros, which I think is more than reasonable. And they measure about 8 or 9 inches in diameter each. They look to be in good shape. Unfortunately, Marquis de Santos in Portugal, when they do their ads for their auctions, they don't include any other. They usually include just one picture. The auction isn't for another 7 or 8 days. If you see a lot you're interested in, contact them and ask for additional pictures and a condition report, okay? I don't know why they don't include more pictures, but they should. But because they have nice things, there's no reason not to show it off. All right, and they have these. And then over here, they also have this. This is very unusual. It's a Nautilus shell form ewer. Typically, you've seen these in porcelain, 18th century export porcelains. This one's on copper, enamel on copper. Beautifully done. Looks to be like it's a nice condition. Again, get a condition report, but a very rare form for on copper enamel work. It has a $1,800 opening bid. It measures 26 centimeters tall, so it's about 9 inches tall, roughly, somewhere around there. But a very rare bird, really unusual. And if you think about it, when was the last time you saw one of these? If you collect China trade objects or China trade ewers or porcelains or something, when was the last time you saw one of those in copper, enamel on copper? So I would strongly urge anybody who has maybe a porcelain example of this, if you want to get it on copper to pair with it, boy, that's a nice choice right there. That's a nice looking thing. And moseying along over to here, they have this nice Ming Dynasty jar. They have it listed as transitional ware. I think it's older than that. This to me looks more likely to be Jiajing or possibly Wan Li. I don't think it's I think it's older than transitional. I think they're off on the date. That's just my opinion, but wonderfly done. A beautiful example and nice size, about 13 inches tall, or wait a minute, 38 centimeters. So that's getting up around 14 and a half inches in height. Nice size, looks to be in great shape. And the colors are good. Get more pictures. Get pictures of the bottom in the condition report. But opening bid of $4,700, and it's worth that. It is probably a $6,000 to $8,000 jar. Nice looking piece of porcelain. And then this may be my favorite thing in the whole sale. I absolutely love this. Let's see here. It is 39 centimeters in diameter, or up around 15 inches or so, and it is a platter, a basin, Famille Rose basin. But the decoration is absolutely Cantonese type sort of decoration, absolutely beautiful interior scene. This is the kind of thing you typically see on paintings. It's a very classical sort of interior painting scene of two women and two men, and these are look like they're fairly high-ranking government officials of some kind. There's a nice balustrade encircling it. This beautiful green that they're using, wonderful. And then you have it looks like a rabbit over here is using a churn of some kind. I don't know what that means, but I think it's great. And I like the soft green outer border that they used on this. Very, very pretty, very elegant color. Probably done during the Jiaqing period, or the first 20 years of the 19th century. 1800 to 1820. But this is a very rare looking object. I like it a great deal. And they did include two pictures of it. Here's the outside of it here. It's done with flowers and citron, Buddha hands, Buddha citron fingers, and it looks like it has peaches over here. You get pictures of the back of this. It might be quite dramatic. All right, and it's estimated, I think, awfully reasonably at 1,800 to 2,400 euros. I would think it would bring that. It has a $1,400 opening bid or a 1,200 euro opening bid. This is a really nice basin, truly very, very, very nice. And unusual. And if you think about it, you probably can't think of when you saw one of these before. We have seen them before, but this style wasn't done often. It's a fairly rare style, so definitely worth checking out, and it's big. All right, and then speaking of big, this thing is a beast. It is 53 centimeters tall, and it is a first quarter of the 19th century Mandarin jar that's been turned into a samovar. Somebody in Europe mounted it with this, which is, I think, absolutely elegant, and 53 centimeters, so it's around 20 inches tall. This is a big vase with figures on standing on lotuses on the sides as supports, and then a seated female Buddha at the top. Absolutely great porcelain, great piece of porcelain in a rare type, and very, very large for this form. Very large, and it is estimated at 5,200 euros to 7,000 euros, 4,000 euro opening bid, but rare and big and very well done. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, this thing is a 9.8. Absolutely beautifully done. As always, condition report when I'm checking particular to make sure these figures haven't been damaged on the piece. Check the corners and all that business. But boy, if it's as good as it looks, this is quite a thing. And it's been retrofitted, of course, with the little spout at the bottom. You could use it too, by the way. That would be great. Imagine using that at a party. Fill it up with vodka or something. or champagne if you want. Okay. And then over to this. This is a sale that's happening here in Massachusetts at Tremont Auctions. They've been having some pretty good sales lately. They get some interesting export pieces consigned to them. And this is one of them. This is an allegorical export plate of Simone in Iphigenia. And it's a story based by Giovanni Boccaccio. Wrote a series of stories in the 14th century, I'm pretty sure, and this is the story of it's actually a sort of a comedy. This man on the right here was sort of he was sort of the goofy son of a wealthy nobleman, and he was the things have been, in the story he's sort of illustrated it as this bit of a bombastic fool. And he's wandering through his father's estate and comes upon the woman here laying down, and there's the foot rim of it. Hold on, and it comes upon Iphigenia, and he's so inspired by her beauty that he decides to sort of clean up his act and begin to court her. He begins to dress better. It's the story of the right woman changing the man, so to speak. And it's a famous story. It's been painted many times. One of the most famous paintings is this one that was done in around 1830 or 40 by Frederick Leighton, Lord Frederick Leighton. And this is the same scene. Of course, it's more painted in the European style, but very famous painting. And again, it's that story by Boccaccio. And here it is on porcelain. So it makes this a really interesting dish. And it's got a $500 to $700 estimate. It's an 18th century plate, and it's 9 inches in diameter. But a very interesting story, lots of history behind it. And if you Google it, you can find out a lot about this, because it's been many other paintings were done also in Europe over the centuries of this story, because it's sort of a one to learn a little something by. That's all. All right, and it's a particularly nice example. All right, and then over here, this is a sale that's taking part at Westport Auctions in Norwalk, Connecticut. If you're a Chinese enamel collector and you like 18th century enamels, you want to look at this. This is a very nice one. It's one of these spur-handled copper enamel on copper hot water pots with its original burner. Now, there's a tiny bit of damage to one of the bottom under here somewhere. I forget. There's a small area where there's some losses to the enamel, but nothing disastrous at all. And it seems to be free of dents, which is very unusual for these. These are often dented, and then bits of the enamels have chipped out and so forth. But this one looks like it's in very nice condition. Nice famille rose colors, beautifully done with this a very attractive stand. I think this is a lovely example. Here it is. All right, and the estimate on it is $50 to $1,000. That's sort of the fallback estimate range. It's got 2 bids. It's up to $60. The auction's in a little over 2.5 weeks from now, and it's a wonderful thing. Should bring $1,500 to $2,300 somewhere in there, but you might be able to snag it for less. Who knows? All right, but this is a very nice piece of enamel. And it is, let's see, how big is this? It's 11 inches tall, so it's good size. And then they have all the other dimensions, somewhere consistent with age, so forth, and all that business. But check this out. That's the Westport Auction Company in Norwalk, Connecticut. It's on the global member pages. The global member pages were updated 3 times this week, and we're going to update them again tomorrow, because there's some sales that have suddenly appeared in the last overnight, and we're going to include them, get them on there. All right, and other things that have happened during the week. This was Veilinghuis de Jager, and somebody keeps asking me why there's so many auction houses with that say Veilinghuis in front of them. Veilinghuis is Dutch for auction, auction house, auction firm. So it would be like saying auction house Sotheby's or auction house Christie's, that kind of thing. Veilinghuis is just another word for auction or auctioneers. and they put it before the name instead of after it. That's what this is about. But at any rate, this sale took place the other day. It finished up on yesterday, and in it was this, and I think this was a very nice buy for somebody. This was a large Kangxi charger with a very bold, very deep cobalt design. Lovely example, very powerfully drawn, very neatly drawn, nice shading, good colors. It had a hairline in it and a minor chip. There's the hairline there, which could be cleaned up very nicely, I'm sure. And here's a picture of the back. It's got that grooved back foot rim with the outer edge is a bit thicker than the inner, and beautiful sort of a track running around it. Lovely, lovely looking plate. And somebody picked this up, I think, very reasonably for $1,000, a little over $1,007. I think that was a good buy. I looked at a charger the other day for someone, and it was estimated, and it wasn't unreasonable. It was just the one with the sort of sprays of flowers all over it that you see on Kangxi pieces all the time. And it was estimated at $1,500 to $2,000. All right, this was estimated very modestly at 300 to 600 euros. It got a lot of attention. That's a smart way to do it. All right, don't kill things with high estimates. It's always the rule. And then this is also at Tremont Auctions. This is Sibel with 3 of the 4 seasons. Another allegorical story, nicely decorated, good soft famille rose enamels. I like the scrolling border. I love how that's done. And interestingly outlined in black, which is quite dramatic. It really punches it up a bit. And there you have the little winged cherubs down here in the foreground, and these lions that look like Fu lions, interestingly. At any rate, this is in their upcoming sale. $500 to $700 estimate, $250 opening bid. Perfectly reasonable. And then there is this. There's 2 weeks left on this. This is Heritage. Heritage has a pretty big sale coming up, but be careful over there, because I know they had an Asian art expert, and I don't think they've yet replaced him, who left about a little over a year ago to go to work here on the East Coast, and I don't think they've replaced him yet. So some of the dating may be a little bit off on some of their lots, and they may have a few things that aren't that old that they think are Qing, that kind of thing. So be careful over there right now. I don't think they're doing it intentionally. Heritage is a very good company. I think they're just doing the best they can, so to speak. But one of the things they got was this very pretty 18th century armorial platter. It's a nice one. It is almost a foot long and beautifully decorated with a nice heraldic crest worked into the top, and then this very Chinese taste background. Really, really beautifully painted, beautiful quality enamels, estimated pretty reasonably at $1,500 to $2,000 with a $700 opening bid. I suspect you'll be able to buy it for down around the low part of that estimate. I think the estimate's a little strong, but the opening bid is fine. All right, and the other thing they have at Heritage, and those of you that collect books, pay close attention. If you collect art reference books and this sort of thing, they have a bunch of photograph lots that came from the estate of C.T. Lu. And those of you who don't know who C.T. Lu is, he was one of the great dealers of the 20th century. He was a bit of a character, because there are people who hated C.T. Lu and people who loved C.T. Lu, because many people viewed him as a cultural robber. Because he brought a lot of stuff out of China through various means, not always the way it should be done. He felt, I suspect, to preserve the stuff because he was an absolute fan in the 30s and 40s and so forth. And he was known for having really good photographs taken of his stuff. This is one lot that has over 30 C.T. Lu photographs, and some of them are stamped on the back. They came from the estate of C.T. Lu by descent to the fellow who took over his business, who became equally well known, named Frank Caro. And Frank Caro started out working for C.T. Lu as his photographer and assistant. And he himself became a brilliant scholar on Asian art. There's a picture of Frank right there. And he was the owner of these photographs. And he worked with C.T. Lu for many decades. But there's a bunch of these photographs coming up. This is a group of 30 C.T. Lu photos. And there's another batch of them here. This is 19. There's some great individual large photographs, this kind of thing. So if you're really interested in art and the history of art and the dealer's side of it, these things all could be framed and made absolutely wonderful. The estimate for each lot is $1,000 to $1,500, but with a modest $500 opening bid. So you figure in this case that's 19 photographs. You're talking about 20 or 30 bucks a piece to open them, which I think is a very, very reasonable proposition. I would, if I wanted them, I'd try to buy all of them. All right, because you're picking up 32. There's another batch here that have another 30. That's 60, 70, 80 or 90 photographs. And these were from there's a good chance these were taken by Frank Caro. Because he was C.T. Lou's photographer for many, many years. Among his other duties, it's how he learned the trade. So it's a very interesting bit of history about the Chinese art collecting world, and there's a lot written about C.T. Lou and a lot written about his gallery in Paris and his galleries in New York and Frank Caro. I own a piece that was had been sold. I own a couple of pieces actually that was sold by Frank Caro, and those who have been collecting for any length of time probably have had or seen pieces with Frank Caro or Lou labels on the bottom. They were very active dealers, the two of them together, and then later Frank Caro independently. So anyway, I won't belabor it, but this, I think, if you're really a fan of Asian art and Asian art history and studying, you want to give these photographs a real serious look. All right, now moseying along over, Coronary sales. Coronary Auctions is having a sale on September 10th, coming up in, this is in Belgium, in about 8 days or so. Wonderful looking sale. They're on Invaluable. They are, I don't think they're on Live Auctioneers for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, there's some good things in here, hundreds of lots, and you want to go through that and check all that out. And then over here is the Villinghuis Lock, another Villinghuis auction house. And in here are some terrific things, some very fine export Famille Rose, all the usual suspects. There's some very nice late 19th century large vases, those big boys that they brought over that were so popular in Northern Europe back around about 80 years ago. Everybody had them. And a lot of them now are being put back onto the market as time's gone by, and this sort of thing. These big Cantonese vases and so forth. There's some good paintings, some good bronzes, and all that business. So absolutely check out the Villinghuis lock sale. Very nice looking stuff, and I think there's going to be more sales coming up. There seems to be suddenly sort of a pulse of auctions. And one of the things I noticed, by the way, was in the news today, the Chinese government is not lifting the restrictions on air travel out of China. So you may see a few fewer Chinese buyers roaming around this year. They're expecting that lockdown on flights. Right now, the Chinese airlines are operating at about internationally are operating at about 1 or 2% of capacity. They're not allowing people to go out, and they're limiting flights inbound as well. Because of everything that's going on in the world with the virus. So if you attend some auctions, you might have a better shot at a few things because of the limits on air travel out of the mainland. All right, now let's see here. It'll get lifted eventually, but that's the way it is for now. Things that sold over on eBay this last week. There were some pretty good things that turned up. We had some good strong price results on things, and some very attractive pieces. There's really pretty pair of memorial plates with that sort of skin tone outer enamel done beneath a fishnet pattern, and then these beautiful little spiking devices and so forth. You'd think they could get it straight on the stamp when they take a picture. It's crooked. They're both crooked. Maybe they can't. No, they're crooked to the stands. Anyway, nice looking pair of plates went fairly reasonably. But these are small. These weren't big 9-inch plates. These are only 5 inches each, and they went for $256 from a seller in New York. Liwa had them, and a fairly new seller. They only got about 60 feedbacks, but pretty good plates. She called them 19th century. If they are, they're early 19th. And this nice looking Kangxi cup with the cafe au lait, the cafe lip on it. Good looking piece. I love the bold decoration. It reminds me of that plate that we looked at earlier here, with these big bold dark decorations on it. Very fine quality, quite attractive all the way around. Looks to be in nice condition, and you can get a sense of the size from the size of the hand there. And this did well. It sold for $597, but it's an unusual pattern. It's a fairly rare pattern. Arthur Potts over in Dorset sold this. I think he's back from his hiatus over the summer. It seems he gets nice things. We'll probably be seeing a lot more from Arthur. And then this sold over the weekend. That faceted early Kangxi period little jar. This is a miniature. I think it was around 4 or 5 inches. How big was this? 4 or 5 inches. Almost 6 inches, 5.5 inches tall, perfect condition, no cracks, no chips, no nothing. Ended up selling, this was Arthur again, ended up selling for $1,429, and it had originally been sold by Robert, I think it was, hold on a second. I don't want to say it if it's not true. There it is, Robert McPherson. Yeah, there's his sticker on the bottom. Robert McPherson is still in business. He's a good dealer, one of the best dealers in Europe. And he sold this at some point in his long career. It's part of the Vung Tau cargo hoard, and it still has this label in there, and did just fine. But this was a gem of a piece. It was a complicated body, a nice splayed base, faceted body, and then came into sort of a very limited, like almost like a gourd neck, and then nice lappets around there and a little tiny lid. Absolutely great little gem of an object for $1,429. Very, very nice. And then this was up too. There were a number of these silk panels last week. This was a good one. We had talked about it because it was in such great condition. I think the outer border was added probably in the 1920s, but the center of it here is Qing, and they often took these and put these very pretty brocade borders and sold them to folks in the West back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. But in nice condition, generally all over. Nice fine needlework, and quite a few people liked this. Ended up selling for $1,274, which is right in the range I think that we talked about. It sold on August 30th. It was being sold by Rufays over in Dorchester in the UK. They get good things. They sell all kinds of interesting things. And then there was this oval platter. What I thought was sort of striking about this was the sort of interesting continuous or adjoined landscape running around the exterior, depicting different aspects of daily life mixed with birds and flowers and whatnot. Here you have some rams over on this side, and then the center has a simple one-letter initial. Surrounded by a spray of 6 floral groupings, and the rest of the platter is left pure white. So it's a rather striking looking thing, and the details are quite nice. You have the boy with the flute on the ox, which appears in many Chinese Chinese artworks, and I think somebody got a dandy buy on this. $221 as is. It had a couple of condition issues, but still really, really interesting plate, and for modest amount of money. And then speaking of modest amounts of money, the Celadon. Now this Celadon had some condition issues and whatnot, and we talked about it. It was online for 10 days, but a nice example, and it's a kind of Celadon that if you're not in the position to spend $2,000 or $3,000 on one that's absolutely perfect, you could have bought this one. And it was large. This was a large one with nice color Celadon. The green was a very nice color, nice and soft, almost ocean green. Here's a shot of it under photo lights, and there's the interior. It had a old series of cracks on this side, and another one over there, and so forth. But here's the bottom, just what you want to see, and there it is, the old break. But it ended up in the end, finally going for $470, which is fine. All right, but it's a nice thing, especially for someone who likes, Ming Celadons and isn't in a position to spend $2,000 or $3,000. Not everybody can do that, but everybody should collect. So there you go. So get the things where you can. All right, and then on to this, the Kangxi Immortals Bowl. We talked about this stuff a couple times. I thought it was just a very, very nice example, and well decorated. It's got this sort of lotus tip rim, and nicely done figures floating on clouds above flowers, and ended up selling for $2,200, which is right about, I think, where we talked about. I think we said last week it would bring 18 to, in the end it would go for 1,800 to 2,300, somewhere in there, which is sort of the range. But this was a nice one. It was a pretty bowl, and this was a seller named Upstatten Yartifacts in Rochester, New York. All right, had that. I'm not that familiar with them. All right, now moseying over to here, this nice silk with silver and gold metallic thread, and this nice looking blue outer border ended up selling and doing okay. It brought $265, which among the silk world made this sort of a bargain, I guess, of the week. I thought it could probably bring $500 to $700, so I think somebody got a pretty good buy on this. This wasn't a small thing; it was 3 feet in length at its longest point, so it was pretty good size. Though it looks like a small piece. It looks like it might be 10 inches by 12 inches. It's actually was quite large, and I think somebody got a really good buy. This came from San Diego, a seller called the State Wonder. We've had them before. And then on to this, the late Qing Dynasty plates with the rice pattern in the outer edge. Most of this is probably from around the end of the Guangxu period. Could possibly be a little after. Look at the foot. No, it's probably late Guangxu. And it has a Kangxi mark on the bottom, of course, which is apocryphal, but it's of a style and type that people typically like. I like the three. It has got the bamboo trees alternating with the blossoms, the prunus blossoms, the apple blossoms, and then the rice pattern, and then this very attractive repeat pattern on the outer edge. Nicely done, and it's a pair. And they were 10 inches in diameter, and somebody bought the pair for $390, which is perfectly fine. And then over here to this, the Perinican Nonya Straits Phoenix dish. There's a lot of, by the way, if you like these on Bidamount Live right now, I think there are 3 or 4 of these in this general style. You can go look at. At any rate, this was a nice one. It had a good-looking, deep rose sort of colored enamels. Judging by the, let's take a look at the back. It's a late Qing example, and ended up selling for $391. And it was how big? Always check the sizes, because size matters, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, hold on. Ooh. He's one of these people that puts the dimensions at the bottom of the page, I bet. There you go, he does. 8 inches. Okay, it was sort of a small one. Some of them are, 10 or 11 inches. Anyway, that wasn't a bad price at all. Somebody got a good buy. And then the silver cup. I just love this little silver cup. Somebody got it, I think, very cheaply, very inexpensively. Probably because it's not marked, or a mark that anybody could see. But an absolutely great design, vine design all over it. Elegant looking, almost looked Tang to me. It's done in that style, Tang goldsmithing, and really, really attractive, classic Chinese metalwork. There it is. If you've ever seen Tang gold work, this is sort of the general feeling of how they did them. And somebody picked this up for just $202. Elegant Antiques in La Habra, California sold that. I think that was one of the best buys of the week, was this little cup. If it had gone for $600 or $700, I wouldn't have been at all surprised, because the quality was so good. It's always about the quality first. Now, what happened here? Where did that go? Okay, that's that. That was the cup. Okay, we'll go back now to this. The powder blue Scriffaccio ground late Qing Republic period vase with famille rose enamels. This was very, very pretty. I'm not sure how they dated this. How did they date it? Has a Qinlong mark. Yeah, we know it's not Qinlong, though. He didn't bother dating it. Okay, so he chickened out. Anyway, that's what it is. If you take a look at the bottom, it's pretty obvious. This is a late Qing, early Republic vase. Nice-looking enamel decoration on the shoulder. And I love the blue. I love the blue ground on this. It glows. really does glow. It's absolutely appealing color, and nicely decorated all the way around. It measures 15 inches and a half tall, and a lot of people like this little vase. It sold for $3,219, but the quality was good. It had sgraffito ground, and sgraffito ground, not sgraffatio, sgraffito ground, and beautiful enameling, and a lot of people chased it. This was Max Wanna Winner sold this. He's down in Florida. He comes up with things, though. I think he's a good picker. And then the plate we talked about a couple of times with the twirling fish and then the vines and all this other business. Nice looking old plate. Very, very interesting. And an unusual pattern, not one that I mentioned that if you looked it up, you're not going to find many like this. And it may have held the price down a little bit. $365. Had no repairs, no restorations, no chips, no nothing. And somebody picked it up for under $400, which is quite unusual. But that does happen sometimes with plates that are atypical, plates that they aren't easily identifiable with a comparable one, where you can see what that one sold for, and then you can gauge from here. They had it put down as Kangxi Yongchen period. Really lovely dish, and I think $365 was very reasonable. And the Japanese Edo period bronze bell. This was a nice one. It wasn't an enormous one. It was about 8 inches tall, but it had a very nice surface. And it was Japanese, so it isn't going to bring what a Chinese one would bring, but very beautifully cast, very elegant. I bet it rang beautifully. And here the rebuses that run around it, and this nice inner Greek border that you see also on all kinds of Chinese things. It's a very popular border. You find it on. It's funny because this is a border you also find on European ceramics throughout the 17th, 18th, 19th century. So it's a curious pattern that seems to be one of those universally liked patterns. I don't know if you can hear that. The sirens coming. Something down in the harbor, I think. There they go. There's always something going on down there. Keeps everybody worried. All right, now this is the other panel that was sold. This is also a very, very nice one. It's a bit more elaborate than the other one. I think it had some minor condition issues here and there, but very attractive with the multiple roundels running across it. Nicely done. Had some pulls here and here and here. These kinds of pulls can generally be cleaned up with a little patience. They're not that hard to fix because they just have to be sort of sewn back into place in many cases. They can be tidied up considerably. It did have a big split on the liner here at the bottom. You can see that. Okay, so it got split there. But other than that, it looked pretty good. You've got a few little splits up in here. The silk may have been dry. At any rate, it ended up selling for $839, which I think was pretty reasonable. But I think the condition is just it might have done a little something to hold it back. That's all. But a nice example would hang well, and you could save $500. And then lastly, from the sales was this, the 18th century export teapot with white glaze and these white flowers and vines popping off. And we talked about this last week because it had some bits of losses here and there. And somebody in the questions on the video for that week asked me, what about getting that fixed? Is that a bad idea? Will it hurt the piece? And on a thing like this, because those of you that have bought and sold or have collected these relief worked export porcelains done these very fine little flowers, it is expected or not a surprise that they're going to have some damage to them because they're so susceptible to it. It's almost like if you've ever handled Balique porcelain, you look at it and the stuff cracks. It's so fragile. And it's the same sort of thing here. It's just very, very prone. It's very fragile. It has to be handled absolutely perfectly for 200 years for it not to have some bumps and damages to it. Just brushing up against something can do this. So I said no. It's not as big a deal to get this repaired as some other things because it's a very prone type of damage. It's something that's very likely to happen, and it's a small area, and it can easily be mended with a good porcelain restorer where they can just rebuild those leaf tips slightly, glaze them white to match them, and you're in good shape. and you're in good shape. At any rate, this did fine. It brought almost $900 with the little breaks. Ended up selling for $898, which I think is sort of in line with what we were thinking. Very, very pretty little teapot. All right, and then a few things coming up. There's just a couple of things. We haven't looked at the full list yet for the week of what will be in the on the Bidamount newsletter page this coming week. They'll be posted when the site updates this Friday. This is the newsletter page. Those of you familiar with it, can be found at the top of the Bidamount site here, and you can subscribe to it for free, and then you'll get a notification when the page has been updated each Friday. And sometimes we update it with other things during the middle of the week. If we see something that suddenly jumped up that we missed, we'll add them later if it's not going to be available by the weekend. Sometimes, always, you might want to check back once in a while over during the week. And one of the things that came up is this. This is a wonderful piece of silk. It closes Monday. It's a seller in Lahore, Pakistan has this. And unfortunately, they photographed it against a very busy bit of floral wallpaper, so it's kind of hard to see it. But anyway, this is an extremely elaborate 19th century silk needlework. It's got that very, very fine, they call it blind stitching sometimes, or the forbidden stitch, which never existed. There's no such thing as a forbidden stitch. It's an old dealer myth. They used to peddle to make the piece seem more valuable. There was those of you never heard of the forbidden stitch is this very fine needlework technique that is extremely small, very, very hard to do. And there's this collector rumor that got started around 70 or so years ago that the Chinese government banned its use because they felt it was causing people to go blind trying to do it. They were sacrificing their eyes to do this work. There was never any such edict. There was no such thing as a forbidden stitch. At any rate, this one has a couple of these pulls we talked about before, but somebody who's handy with a needle could fix these up and really clean that area up nicely. But the decoration is just wild. Especially the apron across the bottom, all these other elements, the crashing waves and the flowers popping out of them, and then spraying up over the rocks with peach clusters. If you look at the details of this, it's quite something. And then the pairings of dragons, and then the pairings of pearls. Absolutely great. And this thing is 165 centimeters long, so it's about 5.5 feet in length. It's a big panel. And it's up to $1,134, closes on Monday, and I suspect it'll probably double that and then a little bit more, in the $2,200 to $2,800 range by the time it's done anyway. If it was absolutely perfect, didn't have those little pulls, it might bring $3,500 to $4,500, but the little pulls might scare away a couple of people. But as long as the silk isn't brittle, those can be fixed. And you can always ask the seller what condition the silk itself is in, the silk ground. And if the silk ground is still nice and pliable, little things like the pulls and the gold thread, which represent a very small percentage of this piece, can be tidied up with some patience. Okay. And lastly is this. If you're a Chinese tea caddy collector, this is sort of a nice one. It's a melon form lacquer tea caddy with a pewter liner. Quite attractive. It still has its original liner. There it is, and it's lobe-shaped. Sometimes you've seen these liners are for sale by themselves. People wonder why they were shaped that way. Well, they were shaped that way because they fit in there. There they are. And nice-looking pewter, probably done in Swato, and beautifully done lacquer work in a small, round melon form. Oh, there go the ambulances. All right, so... I have to check and see if anything happened. That's it. And it still has its wooden feet, which is nice. Often you'll see these wooden tea caddies from China from the first half of the 19th century, mid-19th century, and they have metal feet on them. They didn't originally. They always had wooden feet originally, but they often got knocked off, and they replaced them with metal paw form feet. Because the wood feet were susceptible to breakage. So if you see them in their original wooden feet, it makes them a little more desirable among the collecting groups. And the lacquer is not heavily worn. It does look like here at one point maybe somebody lost their key and they tried to force it open, right here, because tea was kept under lock and key because it was very, very expensive in the day. All right, and that about covers it for the week. There's a lot going on. Global members pages will be updated again tomorrow. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the Sotheby's catalog is now available online. You can flip to it with your phone and go through it. And as soon as other catalogs become available for the September sales, we'll get them up there for you, as long as they produce a catalog or in a PDF file that we can work with to create it. And have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. I know the grandkids are coming to stay with us for at least 2 nights, which is fun. We'll have a movie night, and we're going to have a couple of cookouts. And I had a nice time last week. I think I mentioned I got to see my niece, who I haven't seen in a couple of years because she was out west working. She's moved back. It was great to see her. Lovely time getting caught up on things. And all is well around here. All is well. We got the back end of the big storm that swept through Hurricane Ida, that swept through the south and did so much damage. Fortunately, up here, all we got was, I read somewhere we got 6 inches of rain by yesterday morning from it. And we had some very large waves and moderate winds, not huge winds, but 30, 40 mile an hour winds off the water overnight. It was sort of loud, but and the waves were big. We had some big surf down behind our house, crashing up onto the rocks. That was very loud. It always is. At any rate, it sort of echoes around the bay, and it was sort of exciting to wake up to. But the sun was out by the midday yesterday after the rain stopped. And so we didn't get hit nearly as bad as the poor folks down in Louisiana. They got clipped. And I noticed there's a bunch of organizations you can send some money to help out. If you've dodged bullets this year on storms, maybe do that. All right, and have a great weekend, and see you all next week. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.